Welcome to today. Nice to see you here. I hope you've had a good week. Let's see if I can get this up and running. There we go. I know what I missed. Yeah, it'll have to be. I hope you've had a good week and a good, I almost said start, but a good finishing to the week with lots of nice practice. I thought that today, if you have any topics you'd like to bring up, I am happy to just discuss anything you have on your minds. If not, I have a few topics that we could bring up, but I'm open and always enjoy it when you share something from your lives and you wonder, like, okay, how could I face this in a different way? Because ultimately, this really is not a place to come for philosophical discussion. Like, intellectually understanding this, I almost said like helps nothing at all, but that's not true. It does help somewhat to understand how distortions works and how we separate ourselves from the world around us by creating an emotional pressure to the world around us. That does help to understand. But just because you understand it doesn't mean you've actually done it. What tends to happen to a lot of people who are spiritual is that we like so much to discuss it and talk about it that we don't actually touch it, because you can have a discussion with someone and go really deep and understand, okay, I get it, I see how the ego, the self is coming in and it's trying to take ownership over this experience, and now I understand it, and you've intellectually understood it, but you haven't actually emotionally understood it. You haven't emotionally let go of it, because thinking about it, talking about it is a very different thing than actually going through it and feeling it and seeing that there's nothing there. And we also discussed, I think it was last time we talked about the difference between feeling a feeling or experiencing a feeling compared to when you're feeling like a self caught up in the feeling. Meaning when you're a self that's being attacked by feeling. It's almost as if though, let's say I have a colleague at work who's annoying and they really bother me. So then they do things that I don't agree with, and I feel like they're emotionally attacking me. It's almost like they did something to hurt me emotionally or attack me, whereas all of that is just coming from the inside. So if you feel that, then that means that you feel like I am here and I'm being attacked by these difficult distortions, emotions. That's not the same as feeling it, because feeling it is just giving up the resistance towards that and just letting that uncomfortable feeling come towards you, and it just kind of washes over and there's nothing there. That's easier said than done, because there's a reflex or an impulse to not do that. Actually, there's an impulse to do the exact opposite, which is like, no. You should change your behavior. And when you do, and the whole world conforms to how I want it to be, then I'll choose to feel good. But before that, I'm not going to do it. Out of sheer protest, I'm going to make sure that I don't do it, which obviously makes no sense at all. But that's kind of what we tend to do. And the more you start seeing this, the more you start seeing and thinking, like, what on earth are we doing? Like, this is madness. Why do I go around and ruin not just my whole day, but my whole life because of, something that really has nothing to do with you. Yeah, like I said, if anyone has any topic they'd like to bring up, feel free to type it in the chat, where we can get into something else. Hey Stephen, nice to see you. Do you have anything on your mind today? I don't know if you were here before, but I was saying, like, I'm always happy on Thursday to have other people come up with topics that we can talk about. If you have something that you've had on your mind. JVB is here also. Nice. Do you have something, JVB? You always have these like interesting perspectives and nice angles to look at things from. Actually, both of you do, so I'm very happy if you have something. Steven's just cruising on. I'm happy to hear that, by the way. How about you, JVB? You have something? Hey, Catherine, you're here also. This is so strange. Like, I can see, according to my stream stats, there's one person online right now. I really wonder how this stuff works. I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. Catherine, do you have anything you'd have on your mind? Or JVP, or anyone? Otherwise, I'll just continue with what I was going. I forgot what path I was on. Shalom. We were talking about how feeling the feelings, and then we said, what was I talking about more? Oh yeah, actually a good topic to talk. If you have anything that come up, just type it and I'll switch topic. But a good thing to look at, that's really what I always say when people ask me, like, okay, was it useful to be a monk? Like, do I actually need to become a monk? And there's a lot of good things that came from being a monk, but one of the best things that I got from being a monk was that I was able to say, I don't need to worry about anything that happens to me financially or taking care of anything. All I need to do is just focus on how I relate to the world. So I didn't have to worry about how to make money, where I was going to live, how I was going to provide for myself or a family of mine. All I needed to do was just to focus on how I relate to the world. In other words, how I distort to the world, how I have my emotional pressure towards the world around me. That was the only thing that I had on my mind. And that really made practice a lot easier, because that meant that instead of me going around thinking like, okay, how is this going to affect my ability to earn money? How is this going to affect my, am I going to find a partner? Like all of those things that take up a lot of psychological energy in all of us, I didn't have to worry about that, because those were not on the table for me. I could not get a partner because I live in celibacy, so obviously. I didn't have to worry about making money, because I was not allowed to have. Well, I could have funds for travel and stuff, but I was not allowed to like actually make money or anything like that. That was not something I needed to think about. Instead, I could focus all of my attention on how am I distorting to the world around you. And a practical example of that would be that if you have a conversation with someone, many times when we do that, we're not actually listening to the other person. We're not really there to hear what do they want to say, what do they want to share. What we do is we look inside and we feel how we feel, and we're like, okay, now I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm going to make sure that I say something so they think I sound smart, or so that they can hear how good I know this subject. And if it's something you know a lot about, you can always see yourself like jumping, like I just want to get my foot in so I can say what I know about this topic. And then you want to get in and you want to say like, okay, this is what I know. In other words, the ego, the self, wants to really interject itself in the conversation to make sure that they know what I'm doing. But if instead of doing that, you just stand there and listen, instead of doing that, you just focus on how am I reacting to what this person is saying. So they're saying something that you disagree with. And like say, I like politics to discuss because it's such a polarizing topic, and without saying anything, I can just like, okay, well, obviously we're talking about America. I have one. I'll finish this one and I'll jump over to yours. So when someone is talking about someone of the opposite party that you don't like, for instance, you just sit there and wait until you can put your perspective and say like, okay, whatever you say, I'm just going to wait so that I can come up with the right thing to say to convince you that I'm right. That the ego wants to be right. It likes the conflict and the drama. But instead of thinking that that's important, try focusing on how do you feel about that. If you feel that tension, know that that's the self-active. That's the self putting itself in, creating the drama, the conflict, which will mean that you can never really have an honest conversation with that person. You can never be yourself, because it's always going to be you distorting towards what they're saying instead of actually listening. Because if you would take away that distortion, then it's just words coming out, and you can agree with them or disagree with them, but there doesn't need to be the self coming in with it, like the emotional reaction towards it, which makes it so much more difficult to have a conversation, because then you're not actually listening. Instead, you're responding through the impulse of what your ego wants to say. I need to prove this. Oh, they're so dumb. They should understand this. It's like this. Or that person is such an idiot. Don't you know what would happen if... Like, all of this comes up, and you really get upset by this. So it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. All we're looking at here is how you're relating to that, how you're distorting to that reaction. Hey, Kalle. Nice to see you. Kalle is a Swedish YouTuber I watch sometimes. I like your stream, by the way. So we go in and we try to react to what they're saying, or actually try to respond through our reaction to what they're saying rather than actually hearing what they're saying, which will, of course, make it impossible for us to have a constructive discussion, because now, instead, you're not actually there. You're not in that conversation. Your sense of identity, your sense of self, has interjected itself and is now responding out of anger, fear, worry, greed, hatred, like all of these things. So I do this quite often when I coach people. I tell them to look at something in your life that you find difficult, like a situation where talking to someone brings up all these difficult feelings. And I have a few in my life that are incredibly difficult to work with. And instead of trying to figure out what the right thing to say is, just focus on how you're feeling about it. In other words, where you're distorting the emotional pressure you're creating towards a situation or the person, and you just let their words come at you, and you listen. And instead of believing that you need to feel emotionally reactive to respond, trust that you have the intellectual knowledge to respond when it's your turn. In other words, trust, if you want to, trust that the universe will provide. I don't like saying that, but like, just trust that you'll know. And in the end, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what you say, because, I mean, ultimately, we're all, if you really want to look at it, we're all going to die anyway. So, like, why make such a big drama about it? Why miss this incredible moment of being here and experiencing how nice it is to just be alive and just experience life? Because you chose to emotionally distort towards another human being, which are just doing the same thing to you. They're just distorting towards you and your views. Let's see what JVB is saying. I have one. Sometimes when learning about mindful content, I sometimes use that content as an excuse to be lazy. That is, I get cynical and think nothing matters anyway, and I feel unmotivated. Thoughts? Yes. This is an interesting one. I actually had... my partner has had this a lot, and we ran through that a lot. And that's an interesting thing. If you think we're all going to die, there are two ways of viewing that. One is that you get, like you say, a bit cynical, like, well, it doesn't really matter, so I'm not going to do anything. So why should I motivate myself? Why should I do anything? And that makes you feel like heavy and just really lethargic, like like screw it all, we're going to die. Why fix up the house? Why talk to people? Why be social? Why do anything with my life? Because I'm just going to die anyway. The other, which is how I view it, is that it feels liberating. That's incredibly liberating when you think that... Let me just see so I didn't misunderstand your question. Mindful content. Okay, I answered. There's actually two parts to that question. I'm answering to the last one. Nothing matters anyway. For me, if I think about nothing matters, which is true. I mean, that is true. Like, if you think about it, we think, oh, it's so important. Make a name for yourself. Make sure history remembers you. Okay, but how long? Like, what's going to happen in like 50 years? How many people are going to remember you? 500 years? 5,000 years? How about 500,000 years? 5 million years? Who cares about JVB or Martin? Like, it's completely irrelevant. It really doesn't matter. So, like, it's just how long of a time frame do you want that to be important? And we kind of go into like all these, we make life so difficult just so that someone else will remember us, instead of actually experiencing being here and just talking to as many people as you want to. So the other, like, I don't know if I finished that thought, but instead of feeling like, oh, it doesn't matter, I don't need to do anything, for me, it's incredibly liberating, because you're going to die. There's no pressure. You can't fail. I mean, there's no reason to worry about it, because you're going to die. That's amazing. I can actually start being here. I don't need to worry about what's going to happen next, because I know that it doesn't really matter in the end. So just have fun, experience life, do what you think is important and what you think is the best way to use your life to experience the world around you, and then just do that. Instead of all this heavy, oh, it has to happen this way, or if this goes wrong, something bad is going to happen. So there are two ways of viewing the nothing matters anyway perspective, like you say, JVB. One is it can make me feel really lethargic and like I'm not going to do anything. The other one is it can liberate you. It can make it feel like, oh, actually, you know what? All this pressure, all this heaviness I put on top of myself, oh no, I need this to happen a specific way. I need my company, my business to make this work. I need to make my home look like this. I need to make even my family be the perfect family, like with happy kids and a wife that's always happy, or a husband that's always happy. Like, who has that? Like, I mean, if you're a parent, it's difficult to be a parent. And I heard someone say that all families are dysfunctional. It's just a matter of how much. And I try to think about that. I just try to give my my kids as little trauma as possible for life. We sing that. I make up these silly songs for everything in my home, in our home. And one of the things I do when they do something, the kids start singing like they're like, trauma for life, trauma for life, trauma for life, trauma for life. That's when we did something they disagree with. And then they say like, okay, Mama and Papa, you gave us trauma for life now. And it's our way kind of joking a little bit about that, to say that like, we just do our best. And life doesn't need to happen in a specific way for you to enjoy being here. Because ultimately it is really enjoyable to be alive. It's just that we put so many obstacles in the way. And what you're talking about, JVB, the nothing matters, that's just another thing that can be in the way, or it can also be a perspective that makes it easier to do this. The other part of your question that I read, which is, when I learn about mindful content, sometimes I use that content as an excuse to be lazy. I'm assuming what you mean in that is that it could also mean that we like to intellectually discuss these things instead of actually practicing. It goes back to how I started the stream. It's much easier to sit here and we talk about, okay, you know what, when someone gets angry with you, or someone says something that you disagree with, instead of trying to respond from you, like this feeling, and coming back with that response, instead we just let them talk and listen to them. That's very easy to say, and like, yeah, of course, because that's the ego, and I don't want to be the ego, I don't want to do that stuff, like, ego's bad, don't do ego. And instead we just let them talk. But when you're actually in the conversation, that's difficult to do. It's much easier to go listen to me talk about this and ask a question, or listen to a video about it and go on a forum and type like, I know how this stuff works. And then someone says, actually, you should become the observer and separate from it. And you say like, no, Martin says, actually, you are the feelings you're experiencing. That's what creates the sense of identity. So you should not separate from them. And then you start fighting with that person because they say this, you say that, and then all of a sudden you created the ego, the self has come in because it needs conflict, it needs drama, it needs something that separates you and makes you feel like you're better, worse, different from other people. So just watching content and thinking, oh, I'm doing all of this stuff, really doesn't help much. I think one of the biggest obstacles to actually doing any of this is that it's just so enticing. It's so, I don't want to use difficult, like alluring. Like, it's really, there's this like, ooh, this beautiful knowledge, and I'm going to collect all this knowledge. I'm going to put it in here, put it in there, a little bit underneath here. I'm going to keep all this knowledge with me, and then wisdom. And when someone says something, I'm going to, bam, show them how much I know so they can know how spiritual I am. And if they say something, you're going to be there like, okay, yes, I'm above all this. Yes, I understand you're upset, but I don't care about this. It's all non-dual. We're all the same. You don't exist. I don't exist. So I don't need to care about it. It's like, it's just weird. It's just, you don't need that. Feel what's happening to you. Don't believe that your feelings are something that's dangerous or something you need to keep at a distance. Actually allow them to come and experience what they feel like. So YouTube can be a really good, or any other forum can be a really good place to find different perspectives and or actually get help from it. I mean, I hopefully, like, I have people who have been on the stream for years, and hopefully you find something that's useful for you. Otherwise, I'm assuming you wouldn't come back. And I work one-on-one with a lot of you also. And especially when I work one-on-one, I can see how people can change their perspective and like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that this was the problem. I thought that was the problem. And they kind of gain something from that, which makes it easier for them to enjoy life. But at the same time, all of this stuff, information, it's really, it's just getting in the way. Like, all you need to know is just focus on enjoying life and appreciating how good it is to be alive. Like, if you just do that, then quite automatically you're going to run up against, well, I can't feel good because look at this. Good, there you have the identity coming in, wanting to separate itself. See what happens when you do that. Start experiencing, can I actually enjoy life even though there's so much crap happening in the world? And I absolutely agree that there's lots of crap happening in the world. But you're not making the world better by feeling bad. You're not helping the world in any way by going around and feeling like, oh, it's so terrible, do you know what they did? And then you go and talk to your neighbor and you say like, hey Fred, you know what? It's so terrible. Did you hear what he did? Did you hear what she did? Did you hear what they did over there? Did you hear what's happening over there? Oh, like, we're all going to feel really bad. Oh, instead of actually going out to your friends and neighbors and being a person, talking to them, discussing with them, like saying, hey, how are you doing today? Like, what's going on? Oh, do you need help with like painting your fence? Like, I'll come over to you. Do you want to go and grab a beer? Take a glass of, why do I say alcohol? Take a lemonade, like whatever you want to do. Have a barbecue. Just go over and like play with some kids. Just enjoy life, because then you're going to spread that instead of spreading the heavy, difficult things that don't really help anyone. So it really is that simple. And at the same time as I say that, I also know how it's that uncomplicated, but I know how incredibly difficult it can be to do that, because the self comes in and says, no. You're not allowed to enjoy being here. You have to do this first. You have to fix that first. Think about all the things in your life that you need to fix. Like, if you knew the amount of stuff in my life that's not working right now, and that's on top of, at the same time, getting married in I think my fiance said now it's 5 weeks left. So we're like, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's so many things we should sort out, which could make life incredibly difficult to enjoy. On top of health problems, on top of being a parent, on top of having financial issues, taking care of the house, like all of these things, if I would want to, I could sit and talk for an hour about how poor the world treats me, how unfair it is, how life should be different, it could be different, oh, why I have to struggle so much. And I could make it very difficult for me to enjoy life. Instead, I focus on actually enjoying being here. And So it really is that simple. There's not much more you actually have to know. But it can be helpful to see different perspectives. It can be helpful to talk to others about it. It can be helpful to see that there are ways of experiencing and approaching the world that might be different than you started out with, that make it easier to enjoy being alive. I'm not sure if I asked you, or did I answer the question, JVB, or did you have... Sometimes I go off onto these tangents and I completely forget why. And maybe I missed what you were actually saying. But feel free to correct me or tell me if I missed the point, or if that gave you what you were looking for. By the way, I don't know if I've said this before. Hey Shalette, nice to see you. I don't know if I said this before, but I'm actually in the process of starting a new channel, because I know you fairly answered. Okay. I have this issue with YouTube that when I started out, I was into Buddhism and like meditation from a Buddhist monk. Like, that was the angle that I was coming at all of this, and that's quite different than what I teach now or talk about now. Like, if you've been here for a while, you know that. So I realized that YouTube keeps serving my videos to people who are into Buddhism, and then they come here and they're like, hey, wait a minute, this is not Buddhism, this is not what he's talking about, even though I firmly believe that this is what they actually meant, at least the Buddha meant in the beginning. So then YouTube has that down as my niche or the algorithm, so then it just cannot see that when it pushes videos out to those people, they don't agree with it. Shalev, crazy to see you here, Kalle. Love your videos. I suspect you might be interested in spirituality based on your Matrix video. I haven't seen the Matrix video, but yeah, that's my impression as well, if Kalle's still here. Forgot my train of thought again. Anyway, anyone had anything else they wanted to bring up or think about? Thought about? Oh yes, now I remember what I was talking about. I completely forgot it again in the middle of my train of thought. So what I've been doing is I have this idea that I want to start a new channel completely and do something else. Because I want to do what I talk about now. I don't want to feel like I'm locked into this idea of being a Buddhist monk or ex-Buddhist monk. It's like something, even though that's a great angle to come from, and everyone says like, oh no, that's like gives you authority or makes people listen to you. Like, I don't really care. Like, I want to talk about what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about the things that people expect me to talk about. Let's see, Shalev is saying, what do you think about free will? I was thinking about it with a friend today. Yeah, you have free will, or what do you mean? Like, in what regard? There's a lot of things that limit free will, but ultimately it depends on what you mean with will also, because many times will is just a sense of identity, sense of self that goes in and says, I want that. That's like my will, and I strive towards that. I would say that's not free will, that's the distortion kind of controlling you, pulling you that way. And if you look what's behind that, that's probably a part of your identity that you're protecting by believing I need to get over there, because if I do, then I'm protecting this part of myself, and then I make myself go over there to make sure that I feel successful, to make sure that I feel like I'm beautiful so people are looking at me, or whatever it is that you believe you get from getting over there. So in that sense, yeah, sure, you have free will, but you're making it very difficult because you're putting all these things on top of it, like social conditioning, basically. Like, society taught you that, well, if you're a good person, then you do this. Now, the interesting thing is, in one society, I'd bring this up, if you look at Hollywood movies, like the American soldiers, they're the heroes. They're the ones who come and save the world. But if you look at from some other countries, they would not be the heroes. Like, it would be very interesting to see how they feel about a movie where they're presented as the villains, and the Americans as the heroes, which means that I feel like I'm a villain because I'm part of it. Like, it becomes quite complicated when you start looking at right and wrong, but not just from your perspective, but actually from a larger perspective. Then all of a sudden, like, hey, wait a minute, why am I right and they wrong? It's just because I believe I have the right to say what you should think or not think. And I experienced this a lot when I was a monk, and I traveled between different centers, some that were in Asia, some that were in France. Like, it was completely different different regions, and the people who practice in Asia, they would say, like, oh, it's really strict practice, this is how you do it, this is the only way you do it. And then you had other centers that were like much more into the mindfulness, just talk to people, and it's interacting with other people. That's the important part of practice. Completely different. Seeing like what was right practice was completely contrarian in many ways to the other. And one would say, like, okay, it has to be this way, and the other say it has to be that way. They say, like, how can you say our teacher is wrong? Like, because, like, this is true. He's basically the Buddha. They would talk about Thich Nhat Hanh, and then over there they're like, well, these people, they're not even serious. And this is how you practice. So, free will. Like, if you're there and you think that you have free will, a lot of what you believe is right and wrong comes from social conditioning or conditioning from the world around you. So, in that sense, maybe you don't have free will. JVB, a follow-up. We'll do it quickly. Yeah. I don't want to be unhinged at the same time. The lessons I've gained from content have been helpful and have helped me grow. I just sometimes use that content incorrectly to be lazy. Could you describe a bit more what you mean by being lazy then, JVB? And I'm not saying that you can't gain good stuff from listening to YouTube videos or like watching content. It's just that we tend to overconsume. I mean, you don't need that much. You just need to get the basics of what you want to do and then try that. And if that doesn't work, good, find something else. But what we tend to do is like we find something we like and then we go down a rabbit hole and learn everything. And we think we're trying to intellectually understand it. I actually tell some of my coaching students, okay, you're not allowed to take notes. Don't write anything down. If you try to understand this, you're missing the point. And they're like, what? What do you mean? Like if I try to understand? Yes, don't try to intellectually understand this. I want you to feel this. I want you to feel what this feels like and feel your way there. It's not intellectual intelligence. It's actually emotional understanding that we're looking for. Stephen, America does love its military to a fault, I believe. Yeah. And it's like I said, for an American, that makes perfect sense. But again, like when America starts threatening Greenland, then we as Europeans have to ask, like, wait a minute, what? Like, that makes no sense. Like, I thought you guys were the good guys. And then there were people all around the world who thought, like, I don't know, they were always the bad guys, they would say. And then the Americans kind of crash, like, hey, wait a minute, what are we doing? And there's some Americans like, go America, of course you should do that. This is the right thing. It's like, it's very difficult to project these rights and wrong, and instead of going in there and feel like, oh, I know right, they're bad because of this, then just look at that distortion and see if you can let go of that, and then after that just ask yourself what you want to do about it. I'm not saying just lay back and do nothing. I'm saying like make sure you feel good first, and then after you feel good, then take action or do something about it. Otherwise you're always going to be reacting from distortion or from the ego, and you won't have the what was it who said that? Free will. Who said free will? That was Shalev, yeah. Because that would basically be the opposite of free will. JVB, lazy equals cynical, no motivation, negative, hopeless, low energy. Yeah, that could also just be because you watch too much YouTube, you know. Like I have the same thing. I sometimes overconsume when I go into like hyper-focus on a topic and just do that. Then I'm simply, I just feel bad. I know that I feel bad and I go around listening to stuff all the time. Don't do that. Like, it's just not good for you. Not all the time, but it's a small detail I have to work on. Sure. Okay, nice talk as always, and I really enjoy it when, like I said, you guys have topics that you bring up, because it's always more fun. Here we go. Today is Thursday, right? Yes, it's Thursday, so no guided meditation today. We'll do... let's do box breathing today. It goes together well with the topics, because it's also called tactical breathing, which is because firefighters and military also do it. We breathe in for 4, we hold our breath for 4, breathe out for 4, hold our breath for 4. And you can do this in any tempo you feel comfortable doing. But it really down-regulates the nervous system, so you can feel how you calm down when you do this. And then for some people, this is an incredible way of really calming down and just settling into being here. So I'll ring the bell and then I'll guide you through just a few of those cycles, and then you can continue by yourself. So we'll count in for in, 2, 3, 4, then hold 2, 3, 4, and out 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, and in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, and out 2, 3, 4, and hold 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, and out 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Now just keep counting like that as long as you feel comfortable doing, and then after that we'll just sit together the rest of the time. Thank you for a nice meditation, and as always, a nice discussion before. I really like these questions where there's not always an obvious answer, and there's so many nuances to it. And like I said, really, in the end, it's really simple. Like, this stuff is not complicated, but it's so damn hard to do because there's so much of us in the way of actually doing that. I wish you a beautiful weekend, and I hope to see you back on Monday again. Take care, and until then.